It can also be viewed as a biggest opportunity also for the 21st century to take climate action to adapt. And anthropogenic global warming is threatening humankind, as you can see. The graph is rising since pre-industrial times, and the hottest years have been in the past 10 years. The hottest seven years, including 2016, 2019, 2020, and 2021. And by anthropogenic, we mean global warming is caused by human action. And if we do not change, we are likely to breach the safe thresholds for a sustainable Earth. This Earth is not going to be livable if we breach the 1.5 target, according to the Paris Agreement. So climate change affects social determinants of health in a number of ways, including affecting safe drinking water, affecting the quality of air that we breathe, food availability, and disruption of shelters. And it's estimated that an additional 250,000 deaths will occur between 2030 and 2015 due to climate-related crisis. And the concepts of vulnerability and adaptation are important, as highlighted in the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change 6th report, IPCC 6. And there are two dimensions to vulnerability. First of all is the direct impact that a person or a society feels externally from climate change. The second one is intrinsic, whereby the affected person does not have or do have the ability to respond. And by adaptation, we just mean adjusting to the impact of climate change. So who are the most vulnerable? Unfortunately, the most vulnerable are the least responsible for climate change. I've mentioned Sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia, for example. People with underlying conditions are also listed as highly vulnerable. Women and children and youth, poor communities, informal settlements, rural areas, ethnic minorities, migrants. We do have a lot of a surge in environmental migrants across the world, the elderly, as well as coastal and fishing communities. So I'll touch on the direct impacts of climate change. I'll not touch on the economic and social impacts. I'll just touch on the broad direct impacts that we are experiencing. Climate change is causing variability in rainfall. I'm sure we've seen that. Some regions are experiencing droughts, floods. We've seen floods, storms and heat waves, wildfires, and the quality of air that we breathe. Here in South Africa, the Mpumalanga high-veld region is a hotspot globally. South Africa has got more than 13 monitoring stations, and the data coming from there is showing that the air quality in that region consistently breaches World Health Organization standards. Cyclones are happening, and also we are seeing changes in disease patterns, infectious disease, and also the quality of potability of potable water is also changing, as well as the quantity due to effect on groundwater sources and surface water. And also climate change is also affecting health services by disrupting infrastructure and also destroying drugs, like happened in Mozambique when there was a cyclone, medication literally being washed away by water. So the health impacts we're gonna see, we are seeing actually an increase in waterborne diseases like cholera, schistosomiasis, vector-borne diseases. They are also on the rise. Respiratory diseases are also going to increase, and heat-related illnesses, including cardiovascular effects due to hot days. Malnutrition and foodborne diseases are also going to be the order of the day. Injury and mortality from adverse events are being experienced, non-communicable diseases, as well as human-to-animal diseases like Zika virus, dengue fever, and COVID-19. And also we are seeing a rise in mental and psychological distress among youth, the so-called eco-distress due to anxiety about climate change. HIV, I will not bore you with details. I think by now you are bloated with statistics on HIV from the past 2 days. But we do note that Sub-Saharan Africa, despite having only 15% of the global population, does have 70% of the global infections on HIV. This is a sad thing. And also in Sub-Saharan Africa, women and girls account for 63% of all the new infections in 2021. Look at the demographics of Africa. It's acknowledged that Africa is the youngest population with a median age of 20 years, and 60% of the population is below 25 years of age. This is an opportunity and also a catastrophe. An opportunity in that it is upon us as Africans to increase our climate actions and resilience and to participate in climate change initiatives. So the problem with HIV and adolescents, I just want to reiterate what has been said over the past 2 days, is that adolescents and young people continue to be left behind in the HIV response and face multiple intersecting forms of stigma, discrimination, marginalization, and exclusion. And this is across the whole cascade of care, from access to prevention, testing, treatment, and retention. And adolescence is a unique stage of human development and an opportunity, an important time for laying the foundations of good health, but we are not giving this right to our adolescents. So we've also seen these statistics, 38.4 million people living with HIV globally. I would like to point out that out of that 38.4 million, only about half of them are children living with HIV, and they do not have access to life-saving treatments, compared to 76% in adults. So there's a discrimination on the younger populations. And it's also important to note that with regards to prevention, only 1 out of 3 young people do demonstrate accurate knowledge of HIV. So there's a room and a scope there for intense education on our youth. So there's been noted an intersection between HIV and climate change, although evidence is still emerging. I'll use one article from a reputable journal to illustrate some of the possible pathways affecting HIV due to climate change. So 4 pathways were identified in that paper, namely food security, increase in migration, increase in prevalence of other infectious diseases, and destruction of public health infrastructure. I'll just briefly zoom into those four pathways. Food insecurity, they found out that there's an increase in transactional food for sex due to climate change, and there's an increase in disparities based on gender. There are also worse health outcomes among people living with HIV. As you know, that ARV adherence is related to taking enough food, and there's also risk for other core infections. With regards to migration, it's discovered that with migration due to climate change also comes experimentation with new sexual partners, and there's also disruption to access to medication. With regards to increase in other infectious diseases, increase in malaria and diarrhea diseases, science points to a link between those and HIV transmission, and also worse outcomes among people with HIV. And of course, there's disruption of health facilities, which affects access to preventive services and to treatment, such as your medication and also preventive condoms. Coming on to the SDGs, we know that there are 3 SDGs that we can talk about in this workshop. I know SDG 3 has been touched in the past 2 days, so I'll focus on SDG number 10, which talks about reducing inequalities, and also SDG number 13, which talks about climate action. My time is running out, so I'll just give a quick rundown on our progress with regards to SDGs. which are Sustainable Development Goals. We know that there are 17 of them. With regards to goal number 3, there are some positives that come from goal number 3, like increase in life expectancy. But also there are some challenges there. We still need to make some progress. Goal number 10, there is fair progress, limited progress, and no progress on most of the indicators across all the regions globally. Goal number 13, which is about climate action, is particularly worrying because there's a deterioration of progress. There's a reversal, actually, on progress. It's found that based on the current national commitments for greenhouse gas reductions, there's going to be an increase in 40% globally in pollution. So this is very worrying. I think it is time to take action. And I was reading another article this afternoon which says African governments, as they are planning to go to COP27 in Egypt next month, are planning to table a petition that they continue to use coal, because our economies are still going to depend on untapped resources, which is a sad thing. That we are moving backwards. So finally, to provoke some discussion, we can conclude that climate change and HIV are extremely gendered catastrophes, and it calls for gender-specific responses. Adolescents are at the receiving end of the twin crises of HIV and climate change, especially our young women and children. And they, of course, they are among the ones that are left behind in the HIV and climate change battle. So what do we need to do? We need to include youth as equal participants and natural partners in climate sustainability opportunities, in entrepreneurship, leadership, innovation, and employment. And also there's need for including youth in HIV policy planning and youth-friendly HIV services and programming. I've got 50 seconds left, and I will stop here.
Only one. Okay. 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 We have. Okay. Oh, we have. Okay.
Let's do 3.
Okay. Let's do 3. Okay.
Keep them short. We've only got a little bit of time.
Okay. You can shoot your question number 1.
Oh, it isn't he? They haven't taken it. Let's go with number 2 and then we'll come.
Okay, I'm just wondering, climate change is already a concept that for many of the general population seems like too big of a thing to actually affect them in their day-to-day life or even do anything about. So how would you suggest that we could go about kind of making it known that it does affect you already, and furthermore it's also related to HIV and makes the problem worse?
This one. We'll take this one as well and then Bernard can field them down.
Okay, thank you. So my question is kind of similar. I also wanted to know how we can package this information on climate change so that it's more acceptable to our young people and also adolescents, because the topic on climate change, most people find it boring or difficult to really understand.
Okay, Bernard, do you want to tackle those? There's another one there, but let's take those.
Okay. So I will start with the last question on how to package the information so that it's youth-friendly and appealing to youth. I think that's the purpose of this session. We do have a lot of youth in the room, and we would like you to open up on how we can package that information so that it is digestible and receivable to young generations. And it's not only to young people, also to adult people, even professionals who do not accept that climate change is here. It's already affecting us. So there's a big task of educating the communities, the populations about the impact of climate change. Let us not distance it. Let us not put it too far away from us and continue to watch it on TV thinking that it's far away from you. Right now, as we are speaking in South Africa, there is a protest on water in Mpumalanga, in Guyana. So these are the things that we must use to highlight that climate change is here. It is affecting us. And the question on what can we do as people don't seem to see that climate change is here and it's affecting us. I think what we can do is to emphasize a message on adaptation. There is not much that we can do, like you said, but the best that we can do, especially in the health sector, is to adapt. Let's think of ways we can adapt. Let's think of ways we can live with climate change. And I know at an educational level, there are some institutions which are beginning to incorporate climate change in their medical curriculum, like UCT, which is a positive step because we found that there is a denial even among medical people about the reality of climate change. Thank you. I hope I've answered you.